You're still on the Nuggets over the Suns, even though KD really hasn't imposed himself yet, and they just got rid of the Clippers.
I am. Now, look, there are going to be some questions that Coach Malone and company are going to have to answer, in particular for Jokic. What do the Suns do extremely well? They dice you up in ball screens. That's been a question around the Joker for a long time, how he handles pick and rolls, right? You obviously see KD, Devin Booker get to their midi. Key and I were talking about this morning. CP3 he has that old man game at the park. He just gets to his spots, and you can't help it. He just gets it done. That's going to be a question. But still, at the end of the day, I think the Nuggets are a better team. I question the durability of the superstars for Phoenix and also question the minutes that they're logging.
But let's just say for a second
they have 50
that
points in the third quarter. I know they can put up points, man. I get it.
Let's say they're able to stay healthy, and because it's still relatively early in the playoffs and they didn't have to play a really extended series, KD and Devin Booker and everybody can continue to play heavy minutes effectively in the second round. What then?
Look, they have a chance to win, but I'm picking the Nuggets to win. That's it. I think the Nuggets are a better team.
Why'd your voice go up like that?
Because I'm getting sensitive. Aaron Gordon will guard KD. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a colossal match. I think Aaron Gordon can actually guard KD.
I mean, no one can.
Now, nobody can guard, but, limit him.
Yeah.
So, what I mean by guard for me is 1 point per shot. Like, if I'm walking away and KD is,
1.4 points per shot.
10 for 24 for 22 points, that's a win.
Right.
That's a win.
But when is he ever going to be 10 for 24?
I mean, that's still over 50. I mean, it's – you're just minimizing. It's all about slices. You're minimizing things.
Make him a little less efficient.
But I'm saying, when has he ever really shrunk
he's
in the playoffs like that?
I mean, he's shot those kind of percentages before. I mean, I'm trying to keep KD from shooting 60%, the most efficient scorer the game has seen.
My question to you, though, when has he ever put himself in that?
Boston.
He shrink.
Boston. Last season. Jalen and Jason Tatum.
I think as a whole, though, they ran a lot of different stuff at him.
That's what I'm saying.
He didn't have his best output, but I wouldn't sit there and be like, well, the reason that they lost.
I'm not saying that. I was never that absolute. All I'm saying is you have to shave off aspects of what they do and hope that accumulates to a win, right? So if I'm stopping Kevin Durant from shooting 60%,
from being
and all of a sudden he's shooting 42%, he still has 23. I'm like, okay, but cool. I got him 23 on 25 shots. That's a win. Like, if you get those type of wins across the board on Devin Booker and KD, you have a better chance to win the series.
Let me ask you this, though, Jay. If KD scored 31, if KD scored 32 last night and Booker scored 28 instead of 47, do you feel different about Kevin Durant? Because because Book scored 47 and KD only scored 31. It looked like Book and KD didn't really want it. But his efficiency was so ridiculous that when I look at that part of it, I'm like, well, I'll take that all day long and keep it moving.
Yeah, you'll take that all day long against the Clippers that were undermanned, and it was still games were really close.
But it doesn't matter if it's the Clippers or not. I'm talking about Kevin Durant's efficiency and the way he was playing last night. No matter who that is, I'm taking his stat line.
Okay, but I'm looking beyond the stat line. I can't go 10, 11 minutes in the game without KD taking a shot.
But if everybody else is contributing,
who's everybody else? Though?
But like everybody else is Devin Booker.
Yeah, that's the thing.
DeAndre Ayton was balling.
Yeah, okay.
But if I can get DeAndre Ayton the ball in CP3 to be the old man snake, hit up at the points, and then I got Devin Booker doing what he's doing, why do I need KD?
I think DeAndre Ayton is one of those pieces, Key, where I think this is where you're going to see the Joker win that matchup. I think this is going to test the maturity level and the discipline of DeAndre Ayton. Because I believe in CP3 and KD and D-Book. They're talented. But ultimately, the biggest question around this organization for a long time was, should they pay DeAndre Ayton or not? Jay Crowder's no longer there. He was the one guy that can keep DeAndre Ayton in line, like CP3 and his relationship with Ayton. How does that work out? Like, that's going to be the matchup.
If Ayton could ever become really the guy who fulfilled being the number one pick in the draft, this team would be impossible.
But I mean,
he's good, but
how can he do that when
yeah.
he's on a team with D-Book and Kevin Durant?
You got to figure out
he's
other
never
ways
going
to
be the
contribute.
primary. He's going to be more of a defensive guy.
Yep.
Guy that kind of fills gaps.
But what you got from him, and I know you're not saying this, Jay, but what we got from him last night,
21 and 11. That was good.
I'm good with that. If I can get everything else from everybody else.
Against Zubac, yeah.
I'll remind you, Key, that they barely squeaked by. They barely.
I don't care who it was against.
I'm just saying, if you can get that from him, if he does that against the Joker and he does that against Anthony Davis, I'll take that.
Yeah, you might take it, but Key, they squeaked by without Kawhi or Paul George. They just squeaked by a depleted Clippers team. They're going to have to play a better, healthy Nuggets team.
Just squeaked by
no,
the
they
Wolves.
didn't. What are you talking about? They won 4-1.
Yeah.
They
It was a gentleman's sweep
by.
in 5 games.
No, they didn't squeak. That's not a squeak.
Man, come on, man.
That's not a squeak. Have Pat look it up in the
They
dictionary
just
online.
won 2
It's
games
not a
on
squeak.
buzzer beaters not going in. They didn't just roll past the
they
Wolves.
didn't roll
Not a
past
squeak.
them.
It was
Both of them
fine.
They didn't
doing.
steamroll them.
It's still
Jay,
fine.
you know better than this. Don't you dare let him. Don't you dare.
I'm still taking Denver. I'm sticking with it.
Don't
all
be
the way
letting
through.
Max convince you.
All the way through.
Say
It just feels like you
ESPN.
guys hate on the Nuggets.
I watched the impression I came away from this series was, man, if the Clippers were healthy, they'd have won the whole thing this year. But they weren't, Jay, and they haven't been. And injury is part of the whole thing. It's a huge part. It's huge influence. Look at these playoffs. Huge influence every postseason, it seems, on the outcome of the playoffs. These guys haven't been healthy. Is it time to say that the Paul George trade in particular, and Kawhi made that, his signing with the Clippers dependent upon them getting Paul George, reportedly. Is it a failure, Jay?
I mean, it's not a failure yet. It's starting to feel that way because of injuries. But the reality of the nature is that they both have one more year left on their contracts. So you have another shot at it. And then the year after that becomes an option year for them both to opt in. So at max, you have 2 years left on that deal. Now,
Be amazing if they both stayed healthy in their contract year.
right, but that's the thing that you always say. If they were healthy and Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are just two narratives that just fit together all the time, right? They both have right knee sprains, but there's no doubt that watching just Russell Westbrook and Norman Powell and the way the Clippers are playing, that even last night, them being down 20 after a 50-point third quarter by the Suns. Let me say it again. A 50-point third quarter by the Suns. They come back with a legit chance to win the game. It's 128 if Russ just makes a little easy chippy at the rim, and that's a different game. They had 3 turnovers in the last minute of the game.
Think about what Jay is saying for a second,
there.
everybody. Think about what Jay just said. The Suns were favored to come out of the West. The Clippers, without either one of by far their best 2 players, after the Suns dropped 50 in a quarter, had it tied in the fourth late. I mean, that's insane.
Now it comes down to, Key, what Russell Westbrook decides to do. Now, people say, why are you saying what Russ decides to do? Well, with the mid-level exemption, the most I think the Clippers are able to pay him is probably $6 million. So for Russ, you're at that juncture where, is it about the money? Because what you've just seen from this series in the last couple of games of the regular season is that Russ, with the right personnel around him, is still Russ. Russ is cooking, right? So is it about the money for Russ, or is it about staying in L.A. and giving it a chance, taking less money to potentially win a chip with Kawhi and Paul George, understanding their injury history? That's the question.
Yeah, I think that this stage, and I'll answer for him, unofficially answer for him. I think at this stage of his career, it's going to be more about the environment and the opportunity to do what he was able to do with the Clippers. From what I understand, this was in terms of his career, the most comfortable environment, organization that he's been around, going all the way back to OKC, that he just feels wanted. He feels a certain way. In terms of it being a failure for the Clippers, I would probably say, if you're grading it out, it looked like they were going to be the smartest thing in the room, but they got a grade of about a 77 on the test. They've got an opportunity over the next 2 years to retake the test. They could study up Max over the next 2 years and see if they could get a higher score. Can they get into the 99%? Can they get into the 98%? Because with them healthy, they certainly are one of the top 3-4 teams in the NBA.
I think
But
they're the top
if
one
you-
team, Key.
If you are in a situation where you got a guy half the season and the other guy gets hurt, then you get another guy half the season, then playoff time comes and you get a guy for 1 or 2 games, you're not going to win very many games and you're not going to go very far. And I understand what you're saying. It looks like they're probably the best team in the NBA, especially on paper and Coach Ty Lue and things like that. But I think, without them doing it before, they're one of the top 4 teams.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's true, too, because they looked pretty damn good when they got knocked out of the bubble, and then the Lakers beat the team that had just beaten them. But it is astounding how good they are with Ty Lue and the depth that they have, and guys, as Jay, you mentioned, Mann and Powell and all these guys, and now Westbrook, if he sticks, that they can compete with anybody, compete at least, without their 2 best players. And for those who would question Kawhi, Kawhi's brittle and this and that, you think Kawhi wouldn't want to play in this series? Kawhi was so good in the first 2 games that it became like accepted knowledge that, well, he's the best player in the series. He's a bad matchup for KD. He's actually, we thought this would be about KD. It's really about Kawhi. You think that dude doesn't want to continue to play?
But see, that's why I went at Stephen A. Smith, and I'm going to go at him again tomorrow when I go on First Take about the worst superstar thing, right? Because I think there are ways you can say things about certain players. Like, Kawhi is not choosing to sit out of games. Now, what I do have an issue with is how he communicates when he's able to go or not. And this has been a theme with him for a while. Even though it was 24 games he played with the Raptors in the playoffs, he played through injuries. But you even heard Fred VanVleet talk about, they didn't know whether Kawhi was able to go until sometimes day of games. So
how is he supposed to communicate, Jay?
Well, I think there's a deeper conversation around Kawhi, Key, that maybe it's the time to have it, Key. Everybody acts that leaders are supposed to be the same. Leaders are supposed to be the LeBron Jameses or the Michael Jordans, and we compare
ways.
that, right? Kawhi watched his father get murdered at 16 years old. Think about that, Key. He watched his father get murdered at 16 years old. Game 4 against the Phoenix Suns, his sister just got sentenced to life in prison for murder.
He's been through it. Yeah.
So there's been a lot of – we heard Paul George talk about a lot of the mental challenges that came along with the bubble. If that's within the bubble, think about what Kawhi has been around his entire life. Not everybody overcomes that, Key, with being boisterous, right? Like it's almost like Kawhi is held at fault for what he doesn't say because their communication challenges, but also teams allow him to do certain things. The Clippers allowed him to live in San Diego and fly back and forth. The Clippers allowed him to kind of determine on day of games whether he was able to go or not. The process was it didn't matter what team he was going to be on. He knew who he was and he knew what time it was. Even the way they lost in the NCAA tournament, Kentucky's known for being a one-and-done program. Like him and Bam Adebayo were literally crying in the locker room. Like that's how much it hurt him to lose. And a guy who has a fracture in his spine, there was no question to him when you hear him talk about whether he was going to play or not. He knows what time it is, right? Like he's going to play. So, look,
Does stuff like that make guys like Kawhi look bad? In other words, some guys will play through injury.
One's a sprained knee, the other's, a fractured finger.
No, I agree.
It's
I don't think
injuries.
Well, let's put it this way: I don't think it means anything about Kawhi, but it does make it look bad.
So, Jay, Jay say, it was the sprained knee. Of course, they're different injuries. No, it doesn't
make me look
Max, it don't. It doesn't make Kawhi.
I'll tell you why it does, Key, and I agree with your assessment. Like, wait, these are 2 separate things, and it's not the same thing. We shouldn't judge Kawhi, but inevitably,
one's younger, a lot younger.
But inevitably, the impression is some guys play through it like De'Aaron Fox, and some guys don't.
No, if Kawhi had an index finger with a fracture in it, he'd play.
Well, why do you think
he has a knee? He can't play.
Why do you think Kawhi gets criticized then for missing time? He does get criticized.
But there's criticism by certain individuals on certain players. It's not criticism all the way around. But you go ahead, Jay.
No, I was going to say, I think it would be different if there was a different level of communication from Kawhi about those injuries. I think people would feel very differently about. I don't think people are mad that he's injured. He can't control that, but I think it's how he communicates.
Well, people want
to his franchise what the injury is.
People also want to hear him
talk about, and he don't talk at all.
He don't talk. He had zero.
I apologize for derailing the De'Aaron Fox stuff. It just occurred to me. Is this Warrior series over now though because of this injury?
No, I think it's live. I think it's live. I think it's. I mean, if De'Aaron Fox weren't playing, I would think it was over. Mm-hmm. But now the fact that he's still on the court, I think it's still the best series that we have in the game right now.
The fact that he is playing, to me, shows that the injury is not as serious as people may think. When you say fracture or broken or this, that, people automatically assume the worst, right? If a guy can get out there and you put that splint in and that thing's kind of bent a little bit and he's still able to shoot the ball, JC, because I can't shoot. Okay, I can build a house with bricks, but I can't shoot. I don't know, is he pushing the ball? When you shoot a jumper, as a professional basketball player, not as a fake basketball player who played football, but are you using your fingers for rotation?
All fingers.
Are you pushing?
All fingers.
Are you pushing in the palm? Like, how do you shoot it?
All fingers key, and the last finger to touch my shot, because I'm right-handed, is my right index finger.
Okay.
So for De'Aaron Fox, he keeps the ball a little bit more in his palms, in his left palm when he shoots, but still the last thing to touch the ball is his left index finger, and that's the finger that is fractured.
So if this finger, if they put that splint in there, and they got the splints with the little spongy situation and kind of like an aluminum underneath, and they bend it a little bit, and so your fingers kind of, I don't know, it's like bent.
Hooks,
and you got all the little.
We don't really wear that in basketball because the ball's in our hands so much that like a hard splint would be more for a finger broken. We wear more like finger sleeves to keep it compressed and to keep the swelling down. Yeah, but that doesn't really keep the
little black thing that Kobe used to wear
over the finger. Yeah, but that doesn't really keep the finger stable, right? You need your fingers to be able to bend to shoot the rock and to dribble the rock like that.
Yes or no, Jay? This is to the following question as we wrap this topic here before we get to some football.
You broke that?
Oh. You said
no, this is right here.
All football players have jacked up fingers. You said
no, my boy, please. Ain't nothing wrong. I got this one messed up. That's it.
You said that when Draymond got the suspension, it was actually a must-win for Sacramento, right? And you turned out to be right. Is this a must-win for Golden State for the same reason? Game 5.
No, because if they lose, they have one of the best home records in the league.
So they can
defend home court. And then Game 7, who are you going to give that edge to, experience-wise?
If you need a quarterback, would you call the Jets about Zach Wilson? KJM. Who's the favorite to come out of the East? Is it Boston?
Well, it feels like I haven't seen Philadelphia in like a year.
Right.
Right? Because they've been off for several days. I've always felt like Philly would be the team. It just feels right. Experience from a head coaching standpoint, a little more experience from a James Harden standpoint, although, Tatum and Brown certainly came out of the East last year to play the Warriors in the championship. I still feel like, though, for some reason, Philadelphia will come out the East. This is this youth kind of sort of situation with the Celtics where they should be head above anybody else, but they're not. They now have a 3-2 lead going back to Atlanta. Okay, now, what does that all mean? It means that Quinn Snyder and company feel good about what just happened last night. And now you're doubting yourself if you're the Boston Celtics. What did we do wrong? Can we correct the mistakes? Can we change our defense? Will we allow Trae Young to cross the court and put Jaylen Brown on the switch and have him knock down the three? Can we knock down our shots when we need to? Can we do those sort of things? Now, Atlanta's going to be hyped and jacked up. They moved the Janet Jackson concert to Friday so they can play on Thursday. All of those sort of things, can they handle those distractions when they go back into Atlanta?
Yeah, it seems to me that the thing about the Celtics, look, the Bucks are down 3-1. Unless you think they're coming back on the Heat, and I know many people do. I don't think so. I think down 3-1's a little too much to overcome, but we'll see.
I took them completely out. That's why I skipped over them and went right to the Celtics.
I'm with you. And given that Embiid looks like he's not 100% physically, who is this time of year? I get it, but like there's stuff going on that the Celtics have everything in there that they need, right? Like, it's all in there. They got all the ingredients. They got, if you have a problem with Brogdon not being in the game or this or that, okay, fine. But it's all there. It's all in there with the Celtics. They just got to get right.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.